Hello my gorgeous friends of Webflow, it's your friendly neighborhood Francesco from Subasido here. Today we're doing something a little different and honestly a little bit awesome. I'm going to show you how to create a full scroll-triggered disintegration effect using just a few HTML attributes, no custom code editing required. You'll see how to configure it inside Webflow, apply it to CMS content, and even combine it with native Webflow animations for an extra layer of magic. So, if you're looking forward to it as I am, stick around, and if you find my video helpful and want to support my work, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. But now, if you're ready, let's dive in. Before we start taking a look at the structure of the page, we have to do probably the coolest thing of all this video. Activate the GSAP ScrollTrigger plugin. Super fast, super easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's hit save. Super satisfying, don't you think? Alright, this time we're not starting from scratch. We're looking at a page that's already been built. And more specifically, we're going to walk through how to configure a custom disintegration effect directly inside it. Now, quick heads up before we dive in. Even though this effect involves quite a bit of JavaScript behind the scenes, we'll take a quick look at that later, the configuration part is actually super simple. You don't need to understand how the code works at all. You just need to know which attributes to add and what they do. But let's start by analyzing the structure of the page. Inside our section, as usual, we've got a container with a class main_container. Inside that, there's a section gallery wrapper div block. And inside the wrapper, we've got a heading and a collection list. Now, none of those elements matter in terms of configuring the effect. We're just using the collection list to demonstrate that the solution works just fine with CMS content too. There is one detail worth mentioning though. Our section has a combo class CC overflow hidden. As the name suggests, this sets the overflow property to hidden. But why is that important? Because the disintegration effect creates small fragments that, well, technically, are actual DOM elements. So they occupy space. And if we don't hide overflow, these fragments could spill out the viewport and cause layout issues. Alright, moving on, let's look at the CMS collection powering this list. There's nothing special going on here. Aside from the default name and slug fields, we've added an image field. This is the one we'll apply the disintegration effect to. Then a short text field for description, and a date field, just to have something extra to display. The wrapper around the collection list has the class gallery list wrapper, but there's no styling applied to it. Inside it, we find the collection list itself, which has the class gallery list. That class turns it into a simple 2-column grid. But again, none of this really matters for the configuration. Even the collection item itself, which we've styled with gallery item, plays no role in setting up the effect. Where things do start to matter is the div block inside each collection item. That's our main component. That's where the magic happens. This is the element we'll be applying the disintegration effect to, and it's where our configuration starts. We did apply a small bottom margin to the gallery item, 1 rem to be exact. But as you might imagine, that has nothing to do with how the effect works. What does matter though is the position. The component's position must not be static. In our case, we're using relative, which works perfectly. But absolute, fixed, or even sticky would work just as well, depending on your layout. Why is that important? Because under the hood, the effect generates multiple canvas elements inside the component. Each of those canvases is absolutely positioned, and that positioning is always calculated relative to the nearest non-static ancestor. So, if the component had position static, they'd be positioned relative to the body, and everything would fall apart visually. So, rule number 1, give your component a non-static position. The second thing you absolutely need is this attribute. fc-disintegration equals component. This tells the script, hey, this is the element you should apply the disintegration effect to. Now, since we're working with a CMS collection, we can have multiple components like this on the same page. But keep in mind, this effect is computationally heavy. It generates a bunch of canvases for each component, does some pixel manipulation and animation, so yeah, maybe don't go wild with it. As you can see, we haven't added any other attributes, and that's the beauty of it. We've designed this solution to be as easy and fast to configure as possible. That's why all the attributes are optional. If you don't specify them, the script will use sensible defaults. But if you do want to customize things, here's what you can use. First, we have FC disintegration active on mobile. This value states if the disintegration effect has to be activated on mobile breakpoints from tablet downward. Default value is true. So, if you want the disintegration effect to be active on mobile as well, use this attribute and set it to false. Then we have FC disintegration rotation angle. This sets the range of possible rotation for each fragment in degrees. The actual value will be randomized between minus value of the attribute divided by 2 and value of the attribute divided by 2. The default value is 30, and let's say if we set this attribute to be 60, each fragment will rotate between minus 30 degrees and plus 30 degrees. Next, we have FC disintegration rotation amplitude. This controls how far fragments move from their original position in pixels. The default value is 40, and let's say if we set this attribute to 60, fragments fly off farther. Then we have FC disintegration cascade offset. This controls the staggering of each fragment's animation. It can be a number like 5 or a percentage like 2%. The default value is 5. And let's say if we set this attribute to 0, we won't have any delay. If we set it to 10, each fragment animates slightly after the previous one. Then we have FC disintegration start point. This defines when the animation starts during the scroll, and it follows GSAP ScrollTrigger syntax. The default value is top, top, and this means that the animation starts when the top of the element hits the top of the viewport. So, if we set this attribute to top center, the animation starts when the top of the element hits the center of the viewport. Finally, we have FC disintegration end point, and this defines when the animation ends. This also uses ScrollTrigger syntax, and the default value is bottom top, which means that the animation ends when the bottom of the element hits the top of the viewport. So, let's say if we set this attribute to bottom center, the animation ends when the bottom of the element hits the center of the viewport. Small tip, you can combine keywords like top, center and bottom with pixel or percentage offsets. We'll add a link to the GSAP docs in the video description if you want to explore that more. Inside our component we also have an image, of course, with a class gallery image, and we've simply set its width to 100% to ensure proper scaling. Aside from that, there's nothing else you need to do, but there is one important question worth asking. What about accessibility? I mean, if our original image has alt text, is it preserved? And the answer is yes. When the effect runs, we temporarily remove the original image to convert it into what's called base 64. But we capture its alt text and assign it to the new image we generate. So screen readers still get the same experience and accessibility is fully preserved. Below the image, we also have a heading, paragraph and text elements tied to the CMS fields, name, short description and published date. But these are purely decorative. They have no impact on the functionality of the effect. So now that everything is configured, let's go ahead and publish the page and look at it live. We're not using the designer's built-in preview custom code feature because for some reason in this particular case it doesn't seem to work properly. But once we check the live site, oh, it works beautifully. Just keep in mind, and this is worth repeating, this effect is resource intensive. Each instance generates a number of canvases, processes pixels, animates them on scroll, so yes, it's better not to overuse it in production. Use it to highlight a single key image or apply it to a small subset of items. Definitely ignore your entire CMS grid. And since we're here, let's test it on smaller screen sizes. As you'll see, the effect works well even when we resize the viewport. Why? Because the canvas is dynamically generated from the layout as it appears, so it automatically adapts to the responsive design. And we can also check that the disintegration effect gets deactivated on mobile breakpoints. Before we move on to the next part, where we'll explore how to combine this effect with native Webflow animations, I just want to show you once again that if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll find complete documentation. There you'll see all available configuration attributes, default values, quick examples, and of course the link to the official GSAP documentation. But that's not the only thing I want to show you before we move on. We're also going to take a quick look at the code that powers this whole thing, just so you know what's going on behind the scenes. Alright, now it's time to look at the code behind the effect. And yes, there's quite a bit of it, but let me say it loud and clear one more time. You don't need to understand how any of this works to use the effect. It's all fully configurable through attributes. So as long as you know which attributes to use and what they do, you're good to go. That said, let me walk you through what's going on in the script, just so you have a better sense of what's happening under the hood. At the very beginning, we load the HTML to Canvas library. That's what allows us to take a snapshot of the image and work with it in a Canvas form. Right after that, we define two important parameters, count and repeat count. This control how many canvas fragments we create, the count, and how many times each pixel is duplicated and scattered, the repeat count. And since these values apply to all components, they're defined once at the top of the script. Next, we select all the elements with the attribute fc disintegration equals component. And for each one, after checking the deactivate on mobile option, we call start disintegration. This function does a few key things. It finds the original image inside the component, saves the old text and class list, removes the image, and loads it again as a base64 blob to bypass CORS issues. Once the image is loaded, we reinsert it invisibly and pass the component to create canvases. Inside create canvases, we do the actual heavy lifting. We take a snapshot using HTML to canvas, extract the pixel data, and prepare count blank canvases, in this case 20. Then, we go through every pixel and distribute it randomly across those fragments, repeating it repeat count times, so in this case 4 times. This creates overlapping, randomized shards of the original image. Each canvas is then filled with its own pixel data, placed absolutely inside the component, and animated on scroll using GSAP ScrollTrigger. We also apply a bit of random rotation, a directional offset, and a fade out to each one. Optionally, we stagger the animation using the FC disintegration cascade offset attribute. There's also a built-in resize handler. If the browser window changes size, we clear all the generated canvases, rebuild the image, and recalculate everything to make sure the effect still looks right. Why? Because HTML to canvas creates pixel perfect snapshots, so if the layout changes, the snapshot has to as well. Otherwise, things break. So, yes, there's a lot going on, but again, none of this is your responsibility. Just drop your component in, add a few attributes if needed, and the script does the rest. Now, before we move on, I want to share a few quick tips on how to optimize this effect for real-world projects. As cool as it looks, the effect, we've already said multiple times, can be pretty intense from a performance perspective, especially if you're applying it to a lot of components. So, here are a few best practices to keep things smooth and efficient. First, use optimized images. Avoid super high-res images and keep them under, I would say, 900 pixel wide if possible, and make sure they are properly compressed. Then, one last time, avoid applying the effect to too many components. You probably don't want this effect running on 15 items in the same viewport. Actually, better stick to 1-3 key visuals per page. Also, you could enter the code and change it a little bit to tweak the overall disintegration effect. And you could do that by changing the value of the count and repeat count parameters. But speaking of the count parameter, the fewer the fragments you create, the lighter the effect. So a value between 12 and 20 is often more than enough, especially if you increase repeat count a little, just to balance it out. So when it comes to the repeat count parameter, increase it, but do it moderately. This ensures that each pixel gets duplicated across more fragments, making the effect visually richer even with fewer canvases. Apply these tips and you'll keep your animations crisp and performant, even on larger production-grade pages. Alright, before we wrap up, I want to show you a quick example of how this disintegration effect can be combined with native Webflow animations. To do that, I've reused a gorgeous layout designed by my friend Lydia, which, by the way, earned a honorable mention from awards. You'll find the link to the project and to Lydia's portfolio down in the video description. Let's take a look now. First, you'll notice that the section has a while scrolling in view interaction applied to it. Inside that animation, we're animating the opacity and blur of each individual letter in the heading, and shifting them either upward or downward depending on their position. Now, sure, you could rebuild this exact animation using GSAP if you wanted to, but I intentionally did it in Webflow to show how native and custom animations can work together in harmony, creating something that's visually rich, layered, and honestly, a little magical. Now, if we select the element called header image wrapper and look at the element settings, you'll see that we've set custom values for each of the disintegration configuration attributes. This gives us full control over how the effect behaves: scroll timing, intensity, cascade, and so on. Inside that same wrapper, we've also added two overlays, one with a horizontal gradient and one with a vertical gradient. This softens the image at the edges and makes the transition into the background much smoother. When we view this on the live site, you can really see all these pieces coming together. The scroll interaction, the gradients, the disintegration, everything layered into a cohesive motion system. Not bad, right? And with that, I think we're ready for a quick recap of everything we've learned today. We looked at how to apply a disintegration effect using a simple custom attribute, how to configure timing, intensity, and animation behavior, how to keep things accessible and performant, and how to combine this effect with native Webflow interactions. Everything you saw today is part of a fully clonable Webflow project, and you'll find all the documentation, examples, and links in the description below. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Webflow tips and tricks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Matane!